Hey, y'all, we are live. Um, welcome. Welcome to Deep Lawn's first webinar of 2025. I know the title of this webinar is How to Win the Spring Rush with Deep Lawn. Some companies, like if you're down where I'm in Austin, Texas. A lot of companies are kind of in the midst of their spring rush. They've already been going through spring rush for the last month. But a lot of companies up north are kind of just at the beginning. So this will apply, though. The concepts we go over today are going to apply to systems, things that will help your business all year round, particularly in the spring, because as y'all know, the spring rush is a crazy time. But thank you for joining. On the bottom right of your screen, you can see any questions you have. So we are going to do like a Q&A at the end. We were initially going to have like a chat, an interactive chat, but we had a lot of people RSVP for this. So super excited. I've been looking forward to this for quite a few weeks now. But if you do have any questions that you do want answered on this, send them to hello@deeplawn.com. Rick is behind the scenes. He's making this all work because I don't have any idea how live streams and all that work. But Rick is going to go through those and he'll get them to me and Chana, and at the end we will answer any questions y'all have. So without further ado, we'll get started. So welcome to this webinar. I hope your spring's going well. We have a lot of mostly lawn care companies on this, but some pest control companies. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So most of you probably know, my name is Joel Northrup. I'm the CEO of Deep Lawn. But my journey in the lawn care space goes all the way back to about 2011, maybe even 2009. I wasn't even old enough to start an LLC. Originally, when me and my brother started mowing and push mowing lawns in our neighborhood where we grew up in Iowa, what was just a way for us to save money, for during the summer and eventually save up for college, quickly became more, and we made a business of it. So we ran that lawn mowing business for quite a few years, and we actually acquired a few lawn mowing businesses. And within a couple of years, we had about a team of 10. So fast forward to 2014, we have a pretty good company, but at the end of the year, we realized we're not, we're breaking even. And it's very easy to lose track of your numbers. So we kind of had to restart the business. We started doing a lot of larger hardscapes. We started doing lawn fertilization weed control jobs. And fast forward a few more years, we learned a tremendous amount. We eventually transitioned to an entire lawn care company, just all in lawn care. And this was very difficult pivot because we ended up having to get rid of probably 80% of our revenue, which was mostly maintenance, mostly landscaping projects. But we went all in on fertilization, weed control, a little bit of tree care, because that's where we found profit. That's where we saw we had the most profit, and we felt like we could really, we could really grow that business. So give a couple years, we hired a bunch of people. We were very early on websites, on using Google AdWords, really pushing and growing the company digitally. And we built a very successful business, had over 1,200 clients. And then in 2019, we sold that business. So during those last few years, I went to the University of Iowa. I got a computer science degree and started on the side working on what is Deep Lawn. So whenever, as we grew the lawn care business, we also had a robotic mowing company using robots early on when in Iowa. We started looking at ways that we could use technology to grow our business. And one of the key things that we saw that was changing was was selling services. And I'll get to this a little bit later, but we wanted to make it easier for lawn care companies to be able to sell their services. And that's kind of how that's how Deep Lawn was, got off the ground. So in 2021, after a couple of years of just working in stealth mode, Rick and I launched Deep Lawn, and the rest is history. So we have many Deep Lawn users on here today. We have some that are not. So excited to talk more about this. So the number one thing, my first note here to keep in mind is consumers have changed. And many of you that own lawn care companies or that are in sales or on the marketing side of things, you've seen this and how dramatic it's been. I think COVID, 2020 and what happened with COVID actually accelerated the trend that was already happening. So many consumers today, they are used to Amazon. Everyone I know very few people that have not used Amazon. Almost everybody in the US today and Canada is using Amazon or purchasing things online. And today with a click or two on Amazon, I can purchase anything and it'll be here delivered to my house in Austin in sometimes hours, at most a couple days. So consumers are used to that. Also, Uber Eats, DoorDash, with a click of a button, I can have food delivered, from 1,000 different types of food delivered to my house. So consumers have changed dramatically. And what I saw when I ran my company in 2018, 2019, those trends have accelerated, and most consumers today are used to getting answers to everything with just a click or two. Now I think with ChatGPT, that's even accelerated more. So consumers have changed. Now, how does this impact your company? And that kind of brings us to the next point, speed to quote. So one of the metrics that, when I talk to lawn care companies, and now keep in mind, most of the companies we work with are primarily residential focused. I do believe some of these concepts apply to commercial companies, but most of our companies are residential focused. And all of our biggest companies are primarily lawn care, lawn fertilization. We have some large pest control companies as well. We also have many maintenance companies, but these concepts mostly apply to residential. So speed to quote. Now, very few companies actually track speed to quote. Very few track, okay, when a lead comes in, there should be a timestamp. How long does it take to get a quote in the hands of that lead or pricing in the hands of that lead? I'm a firm believer that if you don't track it, you're not going to be able to improve it. So I tell companies all the time when I'm discussing this and what I've seen, a lot of the things that I've learned, a lot of these concepts I've learned from companies that have been around, many years, and they're tracking these numbers. So speed to quote is a metric I think every lawn care pest control company should actively track, and on a quarterly, monthly, weekly basis, they should try to improve upon. Now, and with speed to quote, what are ways that you can get pricing in the hands of customers? So, obviously, the reason I built Deep Lawn was to solve some of that. And that's why, we've built tools internally. We've built an API so folks can even pull it behind the scenes, pull our data in, but making it super easy for homeowners, potential consumers to sign up. And that's the next point, making it super easy. So with speed to quote, how can you reduce as much friction as possible? A lot of companies put up a ton of friction, and it baffles me to this day. I'll go, sometimes I'll see on LinkedIn, or we'll see my team will do a demo for a new company, inquiring about Deep Lawn. Sometimes I'll go to their website and I'll see folks say, get instant quote. and they'll send them to a page with a form they fill out, and then thank you for filling this form out. Our team will reach out to you. Now, I do think forms have a place, but if you do have a customer that's ready to buy, there should not be friction stopping them from signing up. So that's what DeepLawn's e-commerce tool is for. If somebody goes on your website, it's 2 a.m., they really want to get their lawn figured out, they want to work with a company, they've seen your trucks around, there should not be additional friction added for them to be able to look at services, search their property. Our AI will generate an automated measurement. They can see what services, what packages you suggest and you offer. They can add them to cart and they can sign up. So you should try to reduce as much friction as possible. Now, I'm a firm believer that people that call your business, you should try to answer every time. And this of course is very difficult in the spring. I know for my company, we had one full-time office person, and actually sometimes I would be in the office helping answer calls if she couldn't answer them all. But we still could not answer every call. A lot of times, I don't know if it's the hive mind or what it is, but we would get 5 calls at once, 3 calls at once. Potential clients, people inquiring about pricing, existing clients complaining, everything that a lawn care company experiences in the spring. But I think with AI, I've actually been very impressed. AI is becoming so good at answering the call. You can actually build out logic to be able to answer any calls that come in at the same time. If your office staff is not able to answer, you can get it to an AI agent to answer and then have somebody call back. But besides all that, being able, equipping your office team that does answer to be able to give a price over the phone, talk about how your company is different, and then ideally either sign them up over the phone or send a quote by text or by email where they can click it, they can verify, they can do an e-signature, add their card, agree to your terms and conditions, and sign up. That's where, and TruGreen, I know TruGreen has not always the best reviews out there. Their service sometimes, I know we would compete against TruGreen. They were one of our big competitors back in the day, and they did not offer very good service, but they're an incredible sales team. They make it super easy for homeowners to sign up. If you go on their website, you fill out their form, you're going to get a call while you're on their website from one of their salespeople. In fact, I think their salespeople probably overdo it. They might harass you for weeks on end if you haven't signed up. But those systems in place for your team to be able to give a price, whether over the phone, whether by email or on your website, is crucial to really take advantage of the spring rush, increase your close rates, and also provide a, do what your customers want. And we're going to go to the next slide here. This concept, multiple ways to contact you on your website. I think this is important. So what we see is a lot of companies, when using DeepLawn, using our e-commerce, they'll just use DeepLawn on their website. Now, I think there's still a need. You still need to make it easy for homeowners to be able to call you. There should be multiple call to actions for them to call you to be able to get an instant price and sign up, or say they're an existing client, make it easy for them to log into your client portal, or even filling out forms. Sometimes there's a new partner. Say you're a lawn fertilization and weed control company. You want to partner with a lawn mowing company. You should make it easy for them to be able to fill out a form and inquire about services that way. Some people will not want to get an instant price. Most will. But I think it's important that you make it easy for people to be able to contact you and reach out in multiple ways. Now, I think that, that brings us to the next concept, following up quickly. So it's inevitable that you are going to get a lot of emails in the spring. It was very common for us to come into the office in the morning with 25 new estimate requests, emails ready to go. It's a great feeling, but there needs to be systems in place. And this all goes back to tracking. How quickly can you get that quote or get that price in the hands of that lead? So following up quickly, for folks that do call in, they leave a message, that do email you, or folks say they go on your website, they're using Deep Lawn's e-commerce, they abandon cart. There should be systems in place for your sales team, your inside sales team, outside sales team, your office staff, whoever really is in charge of that, and whoever takes ownership of that, for them to be able to follow up quickly. One of the things, and Chana will go over this a little bit, in which in about probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm going to hand it over to Chana. Chana is going to go through and give practical tips in Deep Lawn. She's going to share her screen and show y'all how you can use Deep Lawn and some of the new products, the new integrations, the new features that you can use to make Deep Lawn better, close more, and just be more effective with the product. But following up quickly is key. And we work with we have quite a few clients that are multi-state, that are many of the top 100 lawn care companies utilize Deep Lawn. And with that, they have regions, sales territories. And I really like how some of them have set it up in Deep Lawn using our geo pricing functionality. They've created different regions for salespeople. There's also a pricing element to it. They'll charge more for customers further out. They will give exclusive discounts to neighborhoods they're trying to acquire more customers in. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But one of the things that I really love about some of these companies is when a lead comes in on the e-commerce storefront, based on the service area, they will log into the Deep Lawn dashboard. And if it's their sales territory, say South Austin or North Austin or West Austin, any different service areas, those salespeople, they're in charge of following up, keeping tabs on these leads and trying to turn those leads into customers, helping set expectations, calling up, answering any questions that they might have. Also kind of doing what most salespeople should do, really showing how you're different, what sets your company apart from the thousands of other lawn care, pest control companies, lawn maintenance companies in your area. Because lawn care, lawn maintenance, pest control is a very competitive industry, as we all know. There's many. I grew up, in the Midwest, my company was, and even in the small towns of Iowa that we operated in, we had hundreds of competitors. So, and that brings us to our next point. So this is actually, some of the stuff we go over here I can expand upon, and I'm going to tell you about, we actually are going to do another webinar in about a month and a half on building route density and geo pricing and choosing neighborhoods. There's a lot of great data out there for helping your company figure out where you should target, and also internal data. Where are your customers? But one of the most important things, if you don't remember anything from this webinar, I think this is probably, this might be the most important point. So the mistake I made at my company is when we went all in on lawn care, we were growing very fast, but we continued to expand to new markets. We put a ton, every year we were spending, 100, 200 grand on marketing, particularly through targeted Google ads, postcards, a couple other channels. But we were not smart about the neighborhoods, the areas that we targeted, and we overexpanded. So at the end of, I think it was 2017, I realized, we had whole cities that we were, our technicians were going to, they were driving to, sometimes up to an hour with traffic that we were losing money on. So we had to make the decision, okay, do we expand in the territory? What amount of route density will make us profitable in those particular markets? Or do we need to kind of scale back and really nail down the neighborhoods that we're in, the cities, the zip codes that we're in? And I think most companies, the really smart ones, the ones that are really on top of their numbers, they're looking at this on a monthly, quarterly basis, sometimes weekly. But I think it's very important that as a business owner or manager or in charge of this, that you really get smart about what cities, what zip codes, what neighborhoods you're in. It is, all the numbers point to it. It is more profitable to have 10 neighbors or 10 folks in one neighborhood where your technicians can go to, spend a couple hours, knock them all out, than it is to have 30 customers all spread out throughout a city. And especially with all the people moving to Austin, every day I spend way too much time in traffic. And you expand that to every technician on your team is spending maybe an hour in traffic every day, or sometimes 2-3 hours behind the wheel, behind the windshield. That can destroy your profits. That can destroy your margins. So, you can really improve your gross margin by focusing on particular neighborhoods. Like I said, either at the end of May or sometime in early June, and we'll be announcing this. We'll send it out an email to y'all. We're gonna do a webinar on building route density. We're working on some cool tools to help companies build route density, but I really believe that route density is the number 2 aspect of profit. Of course, pricing. Pricing is very important. Your team, your culture, all those are super important. You can't overlook them. But route density is something that a lot of companies can easily start to be smarter about. So that's one of the points for this webinar is really be smart about where you service. And then we'll go to the next point. So simple and scalable. The reason I put this here is one of the things with Lawn, and Chana will go over this, but also with selling, as companies grow, they continue to add more services. There's great profit levers, top dressing, aeration is a great moneymaker, aeration overseeding, emerald ash borer treatments, tree care. Sometimes I think it's easy though to overexpand your service offering. I think what your company should really focus on, at a certain scale, at a certain level of growth, I think adding new services can definitely make sense if they're profitable, if you track those numbers. But I think a lot of companies in the 0 to 500,000 or, maybe up to 2 million revenue range should focus more on, route density and having just a few service offerings that they're really, really good at and providing a great service. So I think it's very easy to have, and one of the problems we see sometimes companies when they're using Lawn on their website, they will offer 20 services. They'll throw all of their services at homeowners. Now, some homeowners can handle that, but I do believe that it causes shopping fatigue. Whatever, I don't know what the psychological term is, but I know when I go to a grocery store, if I see 15 to 20 different types of peanut butter, it can be stressful. And maybe that's just me, but I do believe that there is merit to just having a simple service offering and being able to scale with those services. So we'll head here to the next. And this is a really good concept, this next note. I think it's even more important, especially when you're in the digital world that we're in. So obviously there's still hopefully a relationship aspect between you and your customers. Hopefully, they feel like they have a good relationship with you. They can trust your company, your brand. But as we're in this digital world, setting expectations is more important than ever. Now, it's always been important, but it's more important when you're selling online or e-commerce or sending out a quote, or there's very few touch points necessarily talking to a human, or you're not meeting in person. So I really highly suggest you set expectations. Now, when a customer signs up for your services, this is really important for lawn fertilization, weed control. You should make it very clear, set expectations that all of their weeds are not going to be taken out in the first week. It's going to take time. And how do you do this? So like when a new customer signs up, you get an order confirmation, somebody signed up on your website, or you send out these quotes, you got 20 new orders. I really highly suggest, as your sales team is maybe not going out and spending as much time measuring with a wheel, driving to the property, which was the modus operandi for my company back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18. We would drive to a property, one of our sales members would use a measuring wheel, would measure the property manually, give a quote in person, hand it to them. Today, you can sell 24/7 on your website. You can send out quotes in seconds. You're signing up these customers. Your sales team should ideally, or somebody on your team, calling customers up, letting them know what to expect. Another thing, and Chana will show this in a little bit, is setting expectations with the redirect URL. So in Deep Lawn, when an order is confirmed, a homeowner goes on, they accept your quote, or they confirm the order on your website, you can automatically redirect them to a website to help them know what's next. And I think video is very important. I think every company today should start to utilize video to help set expectations, to show people what your brand is about, and let clients know that, hey, your weeds are not going to all be taken out in 2 weeks. It's going to take multiple treatments. It's going to take quite patience and quite a few visits by one of our technicians to really get the clover issue under control, or the crabgrass, or whatever, or if there's a disease in the lawn or disease on trees. So I think this is kind of an underrated, but the best companies out there, they are setting expectations with their clients. I was just having a really good conversation with my good friend Joe Langton. He has to do this, as he does a lot with robotic mowing for golf courses, for homeowners, for large commercial properties. He makes sure to set expectations. This is different than what humans mowing your property. We're still going to show up. We're still going to trim. We're going to take care of your lawn. We're going to spray for weeds. We're going to spread fertilizer. But this is what to expect with these robots mowing your property. So very underrated note. So on the next, and that was my last point. But kind of to wrap it up, before I hand it over to Chana, Chana is going to talk through about 15 to 20 tips and tricks in Deep Lawn that you can do today to better use the product, but also to sell more, to be more effective, to improve your close rates. And she'll be going over that. But I would say, if you kind of remember anything from this webinar, and we are recording this, this will be available. We'll send this to you, so happy to, and also happy if you do send any questions to hello@deeplawn. I'll see them, and once Shauna's done, I'll answer them. But being obsessed with tracking your numbers on how long does it take to get a quote in the hands of the customer. Another metric that I try to talk about all the time is, what percentage of phones are you answering? Are your potential prospects or leads calling you after 5 p.m.? How many calls are you getting? Do you have somebody answering the phone? One thing I see is a lot of virtual assistants now are helping answer the phone. They may be in a different time zone. They'll help answer the phone after hours for the company. Or, like I mentioned earlier, AI can answer the phone, get that information down, and let the homeowner know that, hey, we're going to get back to you first thing in the morning or get you a price. So tracking speed to quote. And then I would say also, and I continue to hark on this, but being smart about where you service and being wise about what neighborhoods you offer services in, which ones you don't. There's many service areas that you don't actually want to be in. They might not be profitable. They might not be your ideal client. So being smart about that. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Chana. So.
Awesome. My name is Chana. I am one of the marketing specialists and I'm in sales here at Deep Lawn. I'm just going to run you through a couple ways to make the customer experience more seamless in Deep Lawn. So I'm here in my Deep Lawn account. I'm going to jump over into the service tab. So one big mistake we typically see customers making is not having a good description for your services. Like this weekly lawn mowing, the description for this service is weekly lawn mowing service. We definitely recommend making that description good so the customer knows exactly what they're purchasing. This fire ant application, this description is a lot better. It also really helps to set the expectation for the customer. That way they don't have to call you up over the phone to ask any additional questions. So another thing that we typically don't see people taking advantage of is being able to reorder your services in Deep Lawn. Whatever service is on the top is going to be the first service the customer sees when they get to the service page when they're going through your Deep Lawn experience. So you can just go through and drag and drop to change the order of any of these services and update them at any time. Another thing that we definitely recommend doing is having a marketing banner for specific services or packages that you're really trying to push to the customer. So whether that says like best value, or some people will do like 50% off. Customers love to save money. So putting like a discount on there is a good way to draw more attention to that specific service or package. When you type out that marketing banner, you will have to push enter, but then it will automatically update. And then the next customer that goes on your Deep Lawn widget will see that banner. Here is an example of a service that has a banner. It will just draw more attention to that specific service or package. Another mistake we see a lot of the time is customers offering too many services and packages. A lot of the time, if you offer too many, the customer is going to be confused and it will lead to customers dropping off. So we typically recommend only offering anywhere from 6 to 10 services and packages. The next step would be in our branding tab, specifically in the checkout page. So one thing that most customers don't realize is you can reorder your payment options. If you are trying to push more customers to use the pay-as-you-go or the pay now, whatever payment option is set first is going to be the default payment option. So when the customers get to the service page, that is how the pricing will display depending on which payment option you have set up first. That depends on how many you offer as well. Another thing that we do not see companies taking advantage of that we definitely recommend doing is having a redirect URL set up. By default, there's just a thank you one. When the customer confirms order in Deep Lawn, it will take them to just this blank page that says thank you. We recommend building out your own customized thank you page. It will really help with setting that expectation for the customer. I will pull up just an example of one. This is a really good thank you page, kind of just explains and it kind of helps the customer just know what to expect moving forward. So we definitely recommend having something like that set up. Another piece in Deepon that we definitely recommend doing is terms and conditions, of course, making the customer accept at checkout, as well as building out checkout questions. The more questions that they answer at checkout, that way you don't have to reach out over the phone or in person. And then going back to having specific salespeople following up on leads, we definitely recommend having tags built out. That way you can have like a specific tag for different salespeople or like lead contacted, depending on how many salespeople you have in your office. But then when you get a new order in Deepon, or a new lead in Deepon, my bad, you can go into that lead. If your salesperson is reaching out to that lead, they can go into that lead and add a tag. We'll say lead contacted. That way, no leads are falling through the cracks. It's just an easier way to be able to track which leads have been reached out to. Another thing we definitely recommend doing is in the marketing tab, building out a custom email template. This email template is going to go out with any quotes that you email out from Deepon. So if a customer calls over the phone requesting a quote, you email them a quote. Whatever template is set to default is the template that will go out. So we definitely recommend building out a few templates that you can send out with those quotes, as well as in the automations tab. We have a few automations in Deepon. A lot of companies that use Deepon are using a CRM that we integrate with. So they will just use the automations in that CRM. But if not, we definitely recommend taking advantage of these automations we have, like the enable lead emails. That way you're getting a notification every time someone searches on your website and abandons cart, then you can have that salesperson reaching out right away. Also, we definitely recommend take advantage of our support tab in Deepon. We have a whole page of tutorials pretty much on each integration, as well as like different setup steps in Deepon. And we continually add more tutorials in there. So that can usually answer most of your questions, as well as our Deepon Wiki. It is just a walkthrough of the functionalities of Deepon. And if you guys ever have any questions or need support, submit a help desk ticket, and then one of us on the team will be reaching out. And then one other note I wanted to talk about is if you have a chatbot on your website, a lot of people will have it in the bottom right corner. If you have the chatbot in the bottom right corner, it will get in the way of the continue button in Deepon. So if a customer searches, they're not going to be able to continue through the process. So I'm going to pull up an example really quick. But if you do have a chatbot on your website, make sure you're moving it to the bottom left corner. That way it's not getting in the way of customers being able to continue through the Deepon process. Let me jump back into Deepon. And then also in the service area, I know Joel mentioned being smart about the area you service. And this would be for whether you have like our geo pricing or not. But you have the option to go in and draw it out. If you have geo pricing, you can set like drive times. That way, if you only want to service like a 20-minute drive time from your shop or just specific zip codes, you can do that as well. So definitely that is a big part of making the process as seamless as possible. But from there, I will pass it back over to Joel.
Awesome. Thank you, Chana. Well, cool, y'all. As Rick is compiling some of those questions, I'm going to mention two quick things. So we're going to have a webinar, and I'm actually super excited for this. At the end, so today is the last day of April. At the end of May, so we're still trying to pick an exact date. we're going to do a webinar on video. So I'm going to have my good friend Tiger Joseph, who's one of the best videographers I know. He's helped many service companies, many software companies. He's helped me do video. He's on Deep Lawn. He is going to join us, be a guest, and talk about how we can use video, how you can use video into your business, and give some really good tips and tricks, and also explain like some strategy behind video. I think video is more important than ever to utilize, especially as we're in this digital world where everyone is looking at their phone all day long or a screen. Video is more important than ever, especially with standing out. So I'm super excited about that. We are going to be emailing and letting you all know on the date for that, so you can RSVP. And then, of course, I'd already mentioned it. We're going to do another webinar sometime probably in June, early June sometime, maybe mid-June, on building route density. So that'll be exciting. We'll show some new tools and some software that we're building to help with that. Okay, so one of the questions we got on, and this is a really good one, is where should I put the widget on my website? Should I put it on the homepage? Should I put it on landing pages? What should I do? So I think that's a really good question. Where do you funnel folks for selling? And I think this answer does not actually apply to all companies. I think it actually depends on a couple things. What is your brand like? Do you have a good brand in your market? Are homeowners seeing your trucks drive by in their neighborhood every week? Are they seeing you every day out? Do you have good video content going on social media? Are folks seeing your name around? Are they getting referrals from their neighbors? I think if you have a really good brand, definitely put it up in the front and center on your website. I think for most companies, you should probably have an instant quote button that will funnel on a page on your website where folks can get a price, or if they're looking for commercial services, they can reach out by form, or they can click to call you. So I think it varies. One thing I see is companies that are premium priced in their market, they should probably not put the pricing front and center. They should probably, if they are a super premium priced, they should probably put it on service pages. They should put it on an instant quote page or get a price. I'm a huge believer that lawn care service companies should have a price page on their website. Any software you go to, any website today with software, with buying online, there's usually a price page. What does it cost? And that's one of the most visited websites on any website. That's the number one visited page on my website. And then also the About Us page, which is very important. But I think it's very important that depending on your price, now if you're the cheapest around, put it front and center. If you're not really trying to stand out your brand, if you're trying to just be the cheapest out there, put it front and center, put it on every page of the website. But if you are the most premium priced, maybe put it on a page, explain, hey, below you can easily get a price. We will be following up. Once you sign up, we'll be giving you a call. You want to really provide the most value, and you want your perceived value to be high. So I think that's a really good question. And if any companies want to discuss that with myself or the team, feel free to reach out. Okay, we've got a great question here. Just came in. Actually, I'm going to answer this because this is a really good question. Do you plan to offer more reporting, sorting, filtering features in the software? We've utilized tags, but it can be tough to keep leads organized. Yes, we are going to do a couple things. So one of the things that we're going to be doing actually in the next few weeks is we're going to have an easy to compile, easy to see all of your leads that come in that are outside your service area. So one thing a lot of companies have asked us, and this is a great question, is how do I know where all these leads are coming in? I want to see them on the map. So a lot of times, folks will go on your website, they'll be outside your service area. For my company in the Midwest, we would get people from Chicago reach out to us, hey, can we get a price? Or hey, can we get a quote? So we're going to make it easy so you can see all that and also see those pins on the map and make decisions. Sometimes there'll be neighborhoods that you don't currently offer, but if you get, so many leads, say 10, you may want to expand to those neighborhoods. So that's one thing we're going to be doing. I think we're going to do some more with better understanding how many visitors came to your website, how many went through, actually, became leads from prospects, how many signed up, better reporting on close rates across quoting, across e-commerce. We are going to do some more with that. So the big update that we're working on now behind the scenes, this kind of a sneak peek, is the speed of the software. We recently pushed a new user interface, and we're going to expand on that, make it even easier to use. But we're working on dramatically improving the speed for the AI. So we're expecting in the next 4 to 6 weeks that the average speed will be reduced to about 15 to 30 seconds at most. So that's what we're working on. But yeah, later this summer, we are going to do some more reporting functionality in the software to better help companies. We're also going to be releasing, we work with a lot of very large brands that do $100 million plus in revenue. They have many different brands under their parent brand. They have locations. We're going to be doing more with being able to better track numbers across different branches and different brands and different locations. So that's a great question, though. Okay, here. What is a good time to get back with customers, and how do you track it? So, that's a good question. Like in Deep Lawn, so a lot of folks, a lot of large companies in their CRM will track their leads. And I think that, if you already have a system you're doing in your CRM tracking leads, you can definitely utilize it. With our HubSpot integration, with Zapier, what's very interesting about Zapier is you can actually set up, and we should probably, Rick and I should probably do a session on utilizing Zapier, kind of getting down and dirty on how to utilize Zapier for really building out some amazing automations. But one of the automations you can do is you can auto assign in Zapier. You can auto assign based on where a lead comes from. Are they in a particular service area? Based on that lead coming in, you can auto have it ping or message or email one of your salespeople. Or you can utilize, in Deep Lawn, you can see where those leads are coming from, where those orders are coming from. You can filter by service area, by neighborhood, and you can follow up with them. But following up quickly, however quickly you can. Like I based on numbers and based on talking to companies, the best success to follow up with a lead, with somebody that's inquiring about services or that abandons cart, is always within the first 15 minutes. Now, obviously, if it's 2 a.m., you don't want to be calling them. In many cities or states, that would be illegal. But if it's during the day, then you should try to get back to them as soon as possible. So as far as time, just try to minimize that time as best you can. Okay, we have a question. Will there be an integration with Copilot CRM soon? So at the moment, we do have, partial integration through Zapier. Now we are trying to expand. I talked to Mike about this. I had a conversation with him about this about a year ago. I know they did a lot of new updates to their software. So I do need to check back in with Mike, or have we need to catch up and talk about having a more seamless integration. Now, you can do a lot. I think there's still, and Rick has gone through this, and happy to, our team can get on a meeting and go through how to actually set it up. But there is a lot you can do with the Zapier. Now, one of the downsides is it doesn't pass over credit card, data. So there are downsides to that, but yes, we are trying to expand with all of our CRM integrations, including Copilot. We are trying to expand and deepen the integration. Okay, that is, and I believe we did have one other question here. You mentioned being smart about where you service. How do you know whether it is worth it to expand the service area? So I think getting data on leads coming in. Are you receiving, one of the metrics you should track, are you receiving calls, emails? Are people going on your website trying to sign up in neighborhoods or cities that are adjacent to where you are? If so, then at what point do you expand? I think that depends on where your shops are located, where how far your technicians have to drive. It's very important that you stay profitable. You don't want to be losing money on a particular route or a particular city. 100 extra grand of revenue is great, but if you're spending 98,000 to bring in that 100 grand, it's probably not worth it. Like, it wouldn't be worth it to me. Now, if you're spending 50 grand, maybe it is, maybe it's worth it to expand to that new location. Or maybe it would make sense to open up a mini location, rent just a very small garage. I think there's a lot of creative ways people have done to stay lean. And I was having a conversation with Lance at Sharp Lawn Care, a big company in Western Iowa and South Dakota. And he was talking about how he expands and has little shops in different areas. He tries to keep his overhead down. And so I think if you can do stuff like that, I think it makes sense. Now, I think it's also important, what kind of clients are you looking for? Are these very profitable fertilization weed control clients? Are these maybe less profitable mowing clients? Are they full maintenance contracts? I think there's a lot there. Also, how many customers do you need to be profitable in at any given neighborhood? A lot of people do not look at how many customers they have on a neighborhood level. One of the numbers I would look at if I was running a lawn care company now, is I would by neighborhood, I would pull up a map and I would see the pins on the map by neighborhood, how many customers we have and what their gross margin is. And then I would decide how many more customers do we need to have the route density that is profitable, that actually makes it enjoyable to go to that neighborhood or to send your team to do revenue there. And we're, like I mentioned, we're building some tools that will help you make decisions on what neighborhoods to target, what neighborhoods your route density is above a certain point where it makes sense, based on your numbers, based on your profit margins, your gross margin, and all of that. And I think that that concludes all the questions that we have. So, y'all, I appreciate you joining this webinar, the first of our webinars in 2025. Hopefully, my hope is you got some good takeaways, that you leave this webinar with at least a few key things that you can implement, or some thoughts, some ideas that you can implement in your business, systems that will help your business grow. That's my hope. And if just one person got one good takeaway from this, it's definitely worth it. So I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. And we will be sending out for all the folks that joined. Actually, I think we're going to be sending out this recorded link to everyone. So you should, probably sometime tomorrow or later this week, get a link to this recording if you do want to, peruse it and watch it again or take down any notes. And then, please be on the lookout for an email with some of the other webinars that were coming up. Again, my friend Tiger Joseph is going to do a webinar on how to implement video for your service business, tips for implementing video and utilizing it to grow your service business. And then we're also going to do another one on building route density. So with that, we're going to end things here, but everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thank you.